About a week ago, Ryan McDowell hosted a 2022 rookie redraft with some members of DLF and then Devi specialty site Campus to Canton. We drafted 3 rounds of a Superflex rookie mock based on all of the information that we know right now, and the results were a little interesting. So let's dive right into it. Starting from the top, probably the 2 easiest picks in the entire draft. Felix Sharp took Breece Hall at the 1.01, and our guy Scott Connor took Kenneth Walker at the 1.02. I think the only real argument between these 2 guys right now is what order that you have them in. Hall was the clear RB1 and 1.01 in the class since the draft season basically started, and Walker is the rising star over the past few weeks now. But I think the only way that you have Walker over Hall right now is because of the ACL injury, which Scott does note in the comment on this pick, saying that with Breece Hall's injury, Walker is the clear RB1 in the class and arguably a top 3 dynasty running back. Personally, I still have Hall over Walker, but I'm not going to sit here and argue the semantics of 2 top 5 dynasty running backs in terms of who's ranked over the other. The point really here is that if you have either one of them, you should be extremely excited. And if you have both, well, congrats on all of your future championships in your dynasty league. Now, the next 6 picks in this draft were all wide receivers, which depending on where you have Pickett in Superflex and how you feel about Dameon Pierce, that may or may not make sense to you, but that is at least what happened in this draft. Now, the order of the receivers in this draft went Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Drake London, Jameson Williams, George Pickens, and then Jahan Dotson. Now, I have my issue with the order, but you can't disagree that all of these guys deserve to be early to mid first rounders right now. My rookie wide receiver 1 right now is Chris Olave after everything that we've seen so far. He's the rookie wide receiver 1 in production right now, and if you watch him, he just consistently gets open, and he has the makings of an elite wide receiver for like the next decade of his career. My wide receiver 2 is still Drake London as my wide receiver 1 all summer and into the start of the season. It's just that Falcons offense is just so frustrating to watch and to have any fantasy stock in. It's just really hard to like Drake London from a production standpoint right now because of what we've seen from him so far, and that's why Olave gets the nod over him. But I've seen enough from Drake London to know that he's going to be very good in the NFL. He just needs to overcome that situation that he's currently in. Garrett Wilson is my wide receiver 3, and this mock's wide receiver 1. Matt Bruning made the selection here and noted that Wilson was his pre-draft wide receiver 1, and with everything that he's seen from him in New York, nothing has changed that opinion. Now, Wilson was great to start the year and is now returning back to that form recently with Breece Hall out. And I don't know if it's a concern or not that Wilson's production basically plummeted when Breece Hall was breaking out. That could be a blip, or maybe it's just a sign of how that offense wants to function when Breece Hall is healthy. But either way, Wilson is really good and deserving of a top 5 rookie pick still right now. The next 3 receivers, like I mentioned, were Jameson Williams, George Pickens, and Jahan Dotson. This is where our pre-draft feelings really start to kick in more, as we haven't seen much of any of these 3, or none in the case of Jameson Williams. Pickens has a great opportunity right now to have an end of season breakout with Chase Claypool gone, and that's why he gets the nod as my personal rookie wide receiver 4 right now. Then we get Jameson Williams, who's purely based on upside, though I'm still not in love with him as much as a lot of other people are. Pre-draft, what I saw was basically a player who needed to transfer and be the only guy on his team to start producing in college. He couldn't even make a dent in an offense with 2 NFL receivers in it at Ohio State. So what happens now that he's in Detroit with an offense with all NFL wide receivers on it? I see the upside. Don't get me wrong. Jameson Williams has tremendous upside, but I also see the floor, and it scares me. Then Jahan Dotson, my dude out of Penn State. He looked great when he played early in the season. He's just been dealing with a hamstring injury that's kept him off the field since then. I really believe that he can be the Commanders' wide receiver 1 in like a year or 2. He's that good. He just needs to get healthy. I also want to remind y'all that I made a whole video about why you should take Jahan Dotson over Christian Watson back in your rookie drafts in May, so I hope you paid attention there. All right, with the receiver run out of the way, 1.09 was Dameon Pierce, and this is where I need to admit that I was wrong. I was wrong about Dameon Pierce because he is just so damn good. He just runs with such ferocity and power. It's honestly amazing that he even gets less than 5 yards at all in a carry. He's been very productive. He's a top 15 running back right now, averaging over 15 fantasy points per game. And I truly hope that the Texans keep him long term. I really, really do. But I know the NFL. I've watched time and time again these highly productive late round and undrafted backs just get tossed aside for a shinier toy, a higher drafted back in a year or 2. We've seen it with Michael Carter, Elijah Mitchell, James Robinson, Phillip Lindsay, Chris Carson, Marlon Mack, Jordan Howard, even Aaron Jones. And for some reason, the NFL puts a value on where they drafted players, and that's led to very productive backs getting replaced or at least have competition brought in for shortly after their breakouts. And that is my fear with Dameon Pierce. The Texans have 5 realistic draft picks in 2023 where a running back that they draft would have better or equal draft capital to Dameon Pierce, and then another 5 in 2024 if he were to survive 2023. It's not an if, but a when for Dameon Pierce, and the clock starts in just a few months. Moving on to the 110, this was actually my pick, and I went with Treylon Burks over Kenny Pickett, who did go at the 111. My process behind this pick was basically trusting my pre-draft rankings for these two players. And I get that this is a super flex league, which in theory would make the quarterback more valuable, but Pickett hasn't done well enough to make me trust in him as a player. I already didn't believe in him much pre-draft, and he's done nothing to change that based on his early performance this season. Not to mention, Pittsburgh is playing their way right into a top 5, maybe even top 3 pick in 2023, which they could use on another quarterback in a great quarterback class early on. Burks was my wide receiver 2 pre-draft, and I was taking him over Pickett all summer long too, so I'm at least staying consistent with what I had before the season started. He's been injured for most of the season, but I still believe in his prospect profile, his draft capital, the overall talent, not to mention the opportunity that he has in Tennessee. So that's my breakdown of my decision there between the two. Then at the 112, this is basically where the real fun begins, as the top 11 is basically the same top 11 that it has been all year, just in different order throughout the season. The 112 is the first pick where the talent pool really drops off, and I feel so bad for Breece because he had to make this pick, but he ultimately went with Rachaad White, which I do agree is the best pick to take there. White has been slowly taking over as the 1B in the offense with Leonard Fournette all year, and has really taken over in the past couple of weeks, to the point where Leonard Fournette has discussed his frustration about being taken off the field in favor of Rachaad White. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if White continues getting more work the rest of the season, and he goes from just a high upside handcuff or like a Tony Pollard kind of player that you could maybe play if you really needed it, to more of a Ramondre Stevenson role with Leonard Fournette acting as a Damian Harris for the remainder of the season. First round's done. Let's get into the second round now. I'm just going to throw the entire round up on the screen for y'all to see. And you can see that Malik Willis found his way to the top at the 2.01, followed by upside picks on Alec Pierce, Tyler Algier, Christian Watson, Sky Moore, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Then we get Greg Dulcich, who jumps basically 2 rounds from his May ADP in the 4th to the 2.07 here after a mini breakout, taking over for Albert O. Then you got Romeo Doubs, Brian Robinson, my pick of John Mechie, David Bell, and Isaiah Pacheco to close out the round. Now, I already know that I'm going to be asked in the comments, why the heck did I take John Mechie at the 211? And basically for me, it was just a giant home run swing. Mechie was drafted at the 212 in the NFL draft over Pickens, Alec Pierce, Sky Moore, David Bell, and yes, he's battling leukemia right now, and as a human being, I pray for a fast recovery and hope that he gets better. But I'm also hoping that from an NFL and fantasy standpoint that he returns to the field in 2023. I've already seen every rookie that I passed on to take John Mechie so far this season. They're all wildly uninspiring. So why not see what could happen with the unknown pick of John Mechie? And then finally, we get to the third round here with all the upside picks, the backup running backs, the quarterback hopefuls in a super flex league. Nothing too crazy going on here in this round other than maybe peep that Isaiah likely got taken at the 3.03 as probably the biggest riser in this draft overall from where we were taking them back in May. But other than that, it was a pretty typical third round. Nothing much more to say here. So that's a look at the 2022 rookie class redrafted halfway through the year with everything that we know up to this point. Definitely drop a comment down below and let me know what your favorite pick of the entire draft was, or if you take issue with where anyone rose or fell to. Let me know all that stuff down in the comments section. And then since we're talking about rookies, if you haven't watched my video yet on why I believe the 2024 class is wildly underrated right now, you can watch that video right up here.